So today I want to expose someone that really does need to be exposed. Someone that I used to be a fan of, and seemingly is innocuous enough. I mean, this girl is just like a Spyro the Dragon, Crash Bandicoot fan, posts videos about Crash Bandicoot and stuff like that. And then I joined her Discord, and I found it was filled with a bunch of idiots. Um, so, long story short, I'll just cut right to the chase instead of building up to it. Um, Miharu the Fox is actually a passive racist that makes excuses for not speaking out against racism. Um, and I really feel like this is a problem that isn't talked about enough, where you have people who rationalize, just like tacit approval of racism, just this kind of like when you see racism you sit there and you do nothing, which is no different than a cop who watches a black guy getting beaten up and murdered by another cop and stands by and does nothing. And this is a major problem with white America, is that people like Miharu the Fox are actually passive racists who enjoy white privilege and want to disassociate themselves from any kind of issue that affects black people, and non-whites broadly speaking, because they enjoy like a complacent, privileged life where they don't have to be concerned about those abhorrent issues. So they don't deal with them. All right. So what are we talking about specifically here? So I had observed a person who was not a good person, or I should say, was not fit to be a moderator on on a Discord or anything for that matter. Let me just bring up the image here. Um, so this is a person, goes by the name Nani. So the pretext to this conversation is, basically Nani was saying, like, there was an issue that was brought up about, I think it was like something offensive was said by someone, and I merely asked what was said that was offensive or racist or whatever, because I didn't understand what had been said. They were discussing some kind of issue regarding a racist thing that was said, and I simply asked in a reasonable manner what was the offensive thing that was uttered. And Nani kind of butted in and said, maybe you should take this to DMs. And then I said, well, maybe we should, at least mention it here. That way we all know what is offensive so that we can recognize it when we see it. So that's the first thing I said here. Um, you know, but then you'll know when someone's being racist slash offensive, like, because the first thing he said before this conversation was, I don't want to see the offensive thing, which on the surface sounds reasonable, but it's actually not, because that's he's basically saying ignorance is bliss, right? um, and then I simply say, well, if you understand what was the offensive thing, then you'll know when someone's being racist or offensive, right? Because apparently the word that was uttered was dyke. It wasn't even a racist word. It was, like an anti-LGBT kind of slur, depending on the context, however. And then Nani says, but I can't do anything about them. I'm not a mod. And that was an incredibly stupid thing to utter. To say that you don't want to know what is offensive because you don't have the power to actually be a moderator and ban people is ridiculous. You can call out offensive or racist things even when you have no power. As long as you have a voice and have a will, you can do something. So I say in a sarcastic and kind of indignant manner, because I was just like kind of taken aback by this kind of idiotic remark. You need to be a mod to call out racism. And then this imbecile says, try calling out anyone on the internet. They just get defensive and troll. So what is he doing here? He's making excuses to not call out um, offensive remarks on the internet and just kind of stand by like a coward, like a weakling, and allow it to just continue. And that's the reason why these racists are emboldened, is because the white people, the privileged white people, just kind of stand on the sidelines and they don't speak out against the racists who do say racist things. That's what allows it to continue. You know, if there's only a couple of people who are saying, no, that's not right, you need to stop it, uh, they're just going to feel emboldened to keep doing it. And then I say, saying nothing ain't the solution either. I don't believe ignorance is bliss. Then he tries to say, then he keeps changing what we're actually discussing. He changes from the point from being about calling out racism to, um, straw manning my point and saying we have people. He's trying to say we have people to deal with it. So I say we're fine. So he's saying that there's moderators on Miharu's Discord, so there's not a problem. But that was never the issue in the first place. So let me bring up the second image. So it's just a little bit here. So I said, I never asserted that we have a problem with racism here. I'm saying it's good to be knowledgeable about what's offensive, and being ignorant to what is offensive or not, speak out when you see it, isn't a good way to comport yourself. So that was actually the end of the conversation with Nani. And I didn't really have a big beef with him because he was a coward, but he wasn't like expressing any kind of overt racist sentiment himself. However, my beef occurred when Miharu promoted this coward to be a moderator. And I brought up the issue with her privately. Let me just bring that up. And I'm going to bring up what like her excuse was. Um, it appeared she became very defensive. And she actually started making excuses for Nani. So this is kind of like a rambling, kind of long thing. Let me see what's the best way to kind of do this. I guess I'll make it kind of big and then just kind of scroll along here. All right, so I brought up the issue to Miharu privately, in a perfectly respectful manner, and here's what she said. So I showed him the screenshots of what he said and the interaction, and to any other decent human being who has a concern and a bias against racism or bigotry in general would have agreed with me and said, you know what, yeah, you make a good point. You know, maybe this guy is not cut out to be a moderator. However, she could have like given a caveat and said, but we'll test him out for a little bit and see how it goes. Maybe she can make some excuses. He's been around for a long time. Not that should have any difference on the matter. But no matter what, someone who makes excuses for not calling out racism should never be a moderator. So here's what she said instead of the reasonable thing to say. It sounds to me like he doesn't want to get involved in battles he's not directly part of, and technically he's right. Now she's defending him. Simply calling out someone out for something won't make them stop. In fact, it can make things worse. Let's go right back. And then she just kind of talks about how weak she is. She hates being in charge. She has no leadership skills. She didn't want to make a Discord in the first place. Blah, blah, blah. I don't care. It really has nothing to do with the point I was making. She's just making excuses for being a weak coward. Um, so then we had kind of like a long discussion that doesn't really have to do with the point I'm trying to make here. So let's fast forward to the next day. Um, and I raised the issue to her again. Okay. So I raised the issue again and I directly addressed the point that she was making here. So it's a little small here. Let's just kind of make it bigger. Okay. So here's what I said. I need to address an issue you brought up last night. You asserted that calling someone out for racism won't make them stop, and then said it could make things worse. I was juggling several points at once and wasn't able to fully address that argument, so I need to do that now. No one ever said calling out racism will suddenly make racists have an epiphany and realize the error of their ways and stop saying racist vitriol. I don't believe that's the purpose of calling out racism where you see it. I believe the purpose of calling out racism is the same purpose for calling out any bad behavior, even if it doesn't directly address the bad person in question. It's to draw a line in the sand and show people that you are wholly intolerant to such behavior and don't support their actions and condemn it. We do this all the time. I've seen you do it. You have condemned many things, and so have I. I'm not sure if there needs to be a direct purpose or and expectations of fruits from our condemnation. It's simply vocalizing disapproval without any expectation. It speaks to our morals. It speaks to what is important to us. So when someone says they don't want to call out racism, it tells me that they don't care about racism against minorities. Any rationale they make regarding why they don't do it is just mendacity to me, which belies their indifference to a major social problem. As for making it worse, the racist in question already made things bad. Being fearful of racists and allowing it to go unchallenged only gives racists the green light to do it further and validates their beliefs that their racism can go unchallenged. So I thought that was a pretty reasonable response to what Miharu's defense of ignoring racism. And instead of actually addressing my points, she dismisses it. She says, I no longer want to discuss this. It's a violation of the server rules, which I'm not even on her server. I'm not on her Discord server. I am DMing her privately regarding this. So we're not subjected to her server rules. It's a violation of server rules to delve into sensitive topics such as this, not because of ignorance, but because it's simply not the place for it. So, as you can see, she's a really illogical person. Um, she doesn't actually address the substance of an argument. Instead, she deflects and then makes excuses not to engage because she's a coward. She's a weakling. And, that would, it's not okay, but we'll just say for the sake of argument, that's okay. But since the subject matter is weakness on an issue as crucial as racism, and we live in a society where black people are getting killed for doing nothing. Um, and we can no longer tolerate white indifference, white passiveness, white I don't give a shit, I live a privileged life, this doesn't affect me, so we're not going to engage or talk about it. And I'm going to make excuses for not calling it out when I see it. I don't tolerate that kind of BS anymore. There was a time when I would have tolerated it. And I did make a video about why white people forbid discussions of politics and society and stuff like that. Guess what? I got news for you. Racism is not a political issue. It's a human rights issue. Okay? And if you make excuses for not calling out racism, then you are a racist yourself, Miharu. That's what you are. You can hide behind these cute little images and, talking about stupid shit like Spyro. But when it comes to serious issues that actually matter, and someone respectfully tries to give you advice on how to improve things, and then you act like a bitch about it, well, you deserve to be called out for it. And it's really unfortunate, but it has to be done because we are no longer tolerant of any form of racism anymore, including passive indifference, sitting around doing nothing and making excuses for not calling out racism. Miharu, you're a scumbag, and everyone should know it.